Hi, Robert and Helen.
Hi, lovely to see you.
It's so
Good
good
to see
to
you,
see
Robin.
you too. Thank you so much for joining me, and so we can share this conversation with my congregation.
Well, it's great to catch up because we love coming to see you in January this year.
Yes,
So,
I'm gonna put the photo of us in front of my church at the beginning of the
lovely.
so
It's a
people
great.
can see it. Yeah. So I was just wondering, perhaps if we could start by just saying where you live and what you do for a job, just in case no one knows, what a purple shirt is.
Well, we live in Gloucester in England, which is about 100 miles or so west of London. And I'm the Bishop of Tewkesbury. That's the suffragan bishop in the Diocese of Gloucester.
And I'm a Deputy Chief Executive for a multi-academy trust. So it's a bit like your charter schools. We, as the diocese, we run 17 schools ourselves. So I look after the standards and well-being and safeguarding for our schools.
So given that, I imagine this time of shutdown has been particularly busy for both of you, trying to figure out how to manage your work differently.
It has been, I think, a couple of months unlike any other month we've ever known. But you know what? I think that's true right across the globe, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
For us in this country, since I think it was the 24th of March when the Prime Minister came on the television and said, that's it, everybody's got to stay at home now, and you can only go out if you absolutely have to go out to work, but if you can work from home, work from work, or go to the hospital or go to get food.
And we're allowed that for daily exercise.
Oh yeah, one daily exercise. They've now eased that up on us, thankfully. It's been an extraordinary time, really busy time. Different seasons, I think, through the time. The first bit about just planning and working out how we went into the lockdown. Now much more looking at how we come out of that. I think that's true for both of us, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, we recognised what was coming. So for 2-3 weeks before we went into lockdown, we'd started planning and preparing for what we thought might happen, so that when it came, we were really in a strong position to support our schools.
Yeah.
And we're rapidly, as from Monday next week, the 1st of June, we are looking to reopen a bit wider because that's the government's request.
Mm-hmm.
So just some specific year groups, but that's coming. So it's really busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's that kind of dawning realization that we went into lockdown relatively quickly over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. Coming out of this is going to be a long time, and we're going to need to go really gently. I think the big fear here is about that second wave, that if we go too quickly into this, so the infections and the number of deaths, which have now come down really quite rapidly, are going to spike again. So it's that balanced judgment about how do we move forward, but how do we make sure that we do it in a way that keeps the virus under control.
Yeah. So you've had, has it been several weeks now of declining cases?
It's been about 4 weeks.
4 or 5 weeks. So
that's started to go down.
Yeah, peaked really in mid-April in Easter, when you look at the figures for them, and has now come down. And I think today across the country there've been 130 deaths recorded with the virus. And overall, we're looking at 36,000 across the country, so you can see considerable reduction there. But nonetheless, that's still 136 people, and one thinks of them and of their families. And we know at the time when I think we peaked at just over 1,000 a day at the real highest of it, and we don't want to go back there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know before all this started, Robert, every Sunday you would be in a different church, right? So
yeah.
So what has your kind of church experience been like in lockdown?
It has been the strangest experience. I'm just coming up to the 30th anniversary of my ordination as a priest, and the first time that I've not been physically to church over Holy Week and Easter. And it's slightly strange as a bishop where I don't have a particular congregation that I'm responsible for either. So right across the diocese, I've seen some tremendous things, as I'm sure is the case with you. Lots of people getting very familiar with Zoom, lots of Facebook Live services. So lots of worship happening online, lots of work in our parishes with people really trying to support each other. In the Diocese of Gloucester, we've had a project called Feeding the 5,000, which has been distributing meals to those in need. And my part in that, I mean, I've not left the house very much at all over the last 2 months, but have been seeking to support our church communities. I've been preaching some sermons online and some children's talks along with my colleagues, so we make sure we can help in that way. And then just lots and lots of pastoral conversations.
Mm-hmm. With the clergy?
Mainly with the clergy and with some of our key lay leaders. Mm-hmm. That sense, I mean, the lockdown here has been pretty strict. People have not been allowed, are still not allowed to go to other people's houses. You can't visit in someone's garden. We're now in a situation where you can meet one other person from another household outside.
One person at a time.
So Helen and I couldn't go and meet someone together. Mm-hmm. One of us could go and meet someone, and you've still got to stay at least 2 meters apart. And for the most part, people are keeping it. So it's all been very strange.
Yeah. What's church been like for you, Helen?
So it's quite nice, Robin, in some regards, because I've got my favourite parish priest back because we've worshipped together. So for most of our married life, Robert's been my parish priest. So I can say that on this because nobody in the UK is going to see this, and I won't offend to them. But that's the nice thing for us, and that's been very special when we've shared a Eucharist together. Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean it's just, the whole thing is just bizarre, isn't it? There's something very weird about not physically being in a church building, mm-hmm. but it's quite quick how you adapt, and you reflect on it in a different way, because it's a building.
I'm learning to live the weekends differently. There's some bits of a bit more time at the weekend that in some ways I quite enjoy.
Yeah. So what do you do if you have some time off to relax?
We actually haven't had a lot of time. It has been manically busy. We're actually both supposed to be on holiday this week, and we can't be because there's just too much to do. And it's not that we're saying that we can't, but because there's just so much to do in terms of supporting and getting schools ready to go back. So there's not been huge amounts of time. However, every cupboard in our house has been emptied, cleaned, and put back.
True.
Robert has rediscovered how much he loves gardening. What else have we done?
I think for me, one of the positives about this time, though I'm kind of ready for it to stop now, has been discovering a different rhythm to life in a way. So it has been really busy during the days, particularly at the beginning was just immensely busy as we were seeking that priority, trying to advise our parishes on what they could and couldn't do. The same, Helen, for you with your schools, but always that sense of trying to make sure that when we've got to the evening to say, actually now it's time to stop. We've eaten together much more. We've got our youngest daughter staying with us here, and that sense of having that time together, and a bit more space just to stop and rest as well, which has been needed within that. and sometimes just to turn on the TV and watch some absolute trash as escapism, which has been also quite necessary. I think, I don't know about with you, Robin, a lot of concentration here on people's mental well-being. Lots of stuff from churches, from communities, from the government about that, recognizing that pretty much all of us are living with fairly high degrees of anxiety and fear about that. I think that's particularly so for us now as we're starting to think about coming out of this. Helen's saying that schools are starting to go back next week. Parents anxious about that for their children. What's that going to be like? Are they going to be safe? And so sometimes I think there is that sense about actually our community that belong to and doing that online where we can do, and then a bit of escapism as well. It's not a bad thing.
I saw a post on Facebook early on where you had put a branch on a seat in for the National Trust.
So when we have a bank when we have a bank holiday, one of our favourite things to do is to go and visit local
stately homes.
Yeah, stately homes, and go and have a walk round, and the gardens are always beautiful. When we had our dog, it was lovely to take him and to go and to walk there. And we can't, all of those things got closed. So Robert decided to recreate one in our house.
But the thing about those homes is that they have somebody in each room who specializes, not always, but sometimes, in telling people what they can't do, just to make sure they don't touch things or don't sit on the chairs that shouldn't sit on. So I thought I'd recreate something of that at home. My friends told me that I needed to go and lie down somewhere.
Oh. So, well, I think humor is an important part of getting through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else has helped you to kind of find your center and get through the difficulty of this time?
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? But Zoom, actually, in a bizarre way, has actually been really good for connecting and helping you to connect. Our old congregation in London, I was part of a big group of mums, and we meet up quite regularly on Zoom now for drinks together and just sharing the pressures of being a mum during lockdown and what does that feel like. And my children are, Charlotte's 26, Alice is 21. They're not small children, but that pressure of having them come back to live with you when they are used to their own independence is an interesting challenge. So that's helped. We've done fun things. We've just spent the last 3 nights having a competition between the 3 of us, a cooking competition. And we've all taken a different country around the world and recreated meals. Robert did America.
I did America.
Oh, yeah? What was the American food option?
Well, actually, I did asparagus. I told everybody that you grow wonderful asparagus.
We just had a bunch of asparagus last night. So
we had asparagus. Excellent. I'm glad we had asparagus last night, and we had a burger. What else could you?
Oh yes, perfect.
But a beautifully cooked homemade burger. So that was
appropriate.
That was great.
So it was
No, actually, it's a mistake because they've now found out that I can cook. I might have to do it a bit more if I'm not careful.
Well,
anyway,
we had our holiday yesterday was Memorial Day, and the big tradition usually that goes with Memorial Day, besides honoring those that have died, is to have a barbecue. So you were spot on with your burgers.
Well,
there you go.
That's good to know. No, we even decorated the garden. I had some American flags to put out to work. They've been really proud of us. It was
so great.
Good.
I'd love to. Did you take any photos?
Yes, I've got some photos. I'll send them to you.
Send you some
excellent,
photos.
excellent.
Do that. I think that thing about though what supports us. One of the things. So we haven't probably done quite so much in the last couple of weeks. That's because we're in a slightly different place. But certainly the height of it, when it was quite scary, and I think along with a lot of other people, we weren't sleeping as much as we had. just with us, our youngest who's at home with us, reflecting on the day and that sense of the examine almost within that, thinking about what's been good about the day, and making sure to give thanks for that, as well as acknowledging the things that we wish were different as well. And I think really useful sense of actually talking about things that are close to our hearts, in a way that so often in normal working life, when we're rushing in and out of the house, we just simply don't do. So have given time. I think if there's one thing over all of this time that's been, I think, really strong, has been that sense of relationships with those at home, relationships with other different means, just making sure that we phone friends and people we know might be in need at the right time. I think it has taught us that those are the things in the end that really matter. And that's kind of the life in all its fullness that comes from those relationships that we share.
Absolutely. And it sounds like that gratitude too, almost like people that I talk to that have a sense of gratitude or able to be grateful for certain aspects of this also are kind of, I don't know if resilient is the right word, but it just sort of, I think, helps bear us along to be able to remember the things that we're grateful for.
Yeah, I think a sense of gratitude and a sense of actually of solidarity. I think in all the time I've known, it's and maybe some of the edges are fraying a bit at the moment, but it's been really encouraging for us to see the way in which the country has come together. And I don't have the same thing, but we have a thing on a Thursday night. I think it's about to end now, but on a Thursday night where people just go and get outside their front doors and just clap to, it's called Clap for Carers, and it's a way of saying thank you to, particularly to our hospitals and the National Health Service and carers. And we live just on the edge of the city here. But you go outside on a Thursday evening, and the noise that is coming from across the city of people clapping and banging pots and pans and just expressing that sense of thankfulness for those who have been working so hard, those being putting their lives at risk to care for us, and to care particularly for those who have been sickest in our community. And a sense of saying we are in this together, and for the most part, people have actually done what's been asked of them, which has been tremendously encouraging. I think the next bit's going to be more difficult, but there is thankfulness in that, really, truly.
And I think it's I think the hardest thing has been in the last few weeks has been the fact that up until about 3 weeks ago, we had the same restrictions across the whole country.
Yeah.
And that was a lot easier. And we're now in a situation where the 4 parts of our union have very different restrictions, and that makes it hard. Particularly, we're very close to the Welsh border. Our daughter lives in Wales, but we also have a lot of Welsh staff in our school. And for those staff, that's very tricky, because their own children can't go to school, but they're required to come to school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's been really challenging.
Bit more of a challenge for us.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to be able to share this conversation with my congregation and get them to glimpse a little bit into what it's like in Gloucester.
Well, thank you, Robin. It's always lovely to talk to you, and please be assured of our prayers for you. One of the other things that I've found helpful in this time is there is an Anglican cycle of prayer by which we pray for different dioceses across the Anglican communion day by day, and it's been really good to do that and to be remembering that sense that we do belong to a worldwide communion. And at times like this, my goodness, we need each other's support and encouragement and prayer. So thank you for all you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we will keep Gloucester in our prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.